Today, we will explain how to override methods in the Go programming language. So first, what is method overriding? So method overriding is a feature of object-oriented programming that allows a subclass to provide a specific implementation of a method that's already defined in the superclass. And when the subclass overrides the method, that method is called instead of the superclass's method when the object is of the subclass type. So method overriding is an example of polymorphism because you have the same method name in two places, but you can have different implementation depending on the object's type. So as we know, Go does not have classes. It's sometimes called a post-object-oriented programming language. Instead, it has structs and interfaces that can be used to achieve the similar functionality. So let's jump into embedded structs. So in this piece of code, I have a struct called myType. It has a field I, and it has a method attached to it called do that prints a message. And then I have another struct, and this composed struct embeds the myPrint struct inside of it. So when we, down here, when we call the method do on the composed struct, it basically forwards the call to the embedded struct. So let's draw a picture of how this looks. So we have the myPrint struct here, myPrint, and it has a method called do. And outside, we have the myComposed print struct, right? And when the do method gets called on the composed struct, it simply gets forwarded to the embedded struct. All right, let's go ahead and run this. And we see the output. First, we create an instance of the base struct, and we call do on it, so it prints hello world. Then we create an instance of the composed struct, and we call do on it, and basically we get the same results because fundamentally, there's not much difference between these two. In effect, this is just a wrapper. But this is important base knowledge for the next step, and that's method overriding. So suppose this composed struct wanted to override the do method. So let's go ahead and do that. Func okay, ChatGPT already helped us out here. Let's first, what we do is call the parent method. So we do have access to the parent method, and it's a lot like calling the super method in other programming languages. So we can do it like this: a pointer to our type, and then we access this embedded struct just by its type name directly like this, and then we call do to call that method. So we call the parent method here, and then we call over here. And it's interesting that this I is shared, right? It's the same I that the the embedded struct uses, and it's also accessible by the composed struct. All right, so let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. So initial case, the same as before, but now in the composed case, first, the embedded struct method gets called with a 0. It increments its I. Then this happens, right? So this way we know that we're actually inside this method. And then the I gets incremented, and then we call it again down here. So the same thing similar thing gets output with I being incremented in both cases. And there you go. That is how you override a method in Go. Now, oftentimes we see method overriding being used with interfaces. But you don't necessarily need to have an interface in here. It's just there's some common patterns where interfaces are useful. So one common pattern is, suppose you are using a third-party library, and then you're using a type of that third-party library as an interface. So you're passing the interface around, but you want to override a method in that library that is also exposed by an interface. So you would create a composed struct like this. You would override that method on the interface, and you would basically create that composed struct in your code, and then you would continue passing it around by the interface handle, right? So that's how you would combine an interface with a method overriding. So that's it for today.